I'd like everybody to stand. We're going to say the pledge of allegiance. I'm going to approach the leaders in prayer.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this time we're able to come together and to talk about your business of this city. Lord, I pray that you be with us as we do it, and pray that you guide us in the decisions that we make. Pray that you be with those that are around about us that have needs in their lives. I pray that you continue to meet those needs. Pray for our country. I pray that you continue to watch over it, care for it, protect it, Lord. Be with those that are out there protecting it for us. Be with them in a special way, too. Thank you for your watching over us and all that we do. Go with us as we go through this time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we'll have roll call.
Alderman Betts. Present. Alderwoman Dorway.
Present.
Alderman Gardner. Alderman Gardner is absent at this time. Alderman McCoy.
Present.
Alderman Probst.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum present.
Okay. All right, you have in front of you the minutes from the previous meeting. You've had a chance to look over those. So will someone entertain a motion to accept those?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Alderman Betts to approve the previous minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Probst, but then you beat that. All in favor? Okay. All right, next first item on the agenda will be Ms. Deborah Moak, our CPA. She's going to give us a financial statement report.
Okay, the balance sheet is as of January 31st, 2018. It shows our assets, liabilities, and fund balance as of that period in time. Our cash, is relatively low, but we have still maintained the $2.3 million reserve in the hydro fund. We also have a receivable of $2.8 million, which is the hydro royalty that we would have received in February. And we also have a high receivable in our utility department receivables of $2 million. And we have accounts payable of $985,000 in the enterprise fund. In the industrial park fund, we show a receivable of $871,000, which is a good bit of that is because of the Project Blue and the amount of money that they owe us for rent. Then on the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the 7 months ended January 31st, 2018, the general fund shows revenues of $1.1 million and expenses of $5.5 million, with transfers in and out for a net change in position of $321,000. The special revenue fund has revenues of $8.2 million, with total expenditures of $5.5, with transfers in and out, which would be a negative $1.25 million. The debt service fund is showing a change in net position of $6,052. The capital fund shows revenues of $979,000 and expenditures of $683,000 for a net change in position of $531,000 after you take in your transfers in and out. And your enterprise fund had a $7 million in revenue and $5.7 in expenditures. With transfers in and out, it left a negative $54,118. And the combined totals let a net change in position of a negative $446,927. On the budget to actual comparison by fund type for the 7 months ended January 31st, 2018. You have all your different funds, and it's comparing your budget to actual amounts, which they should be in the 58th percentile, but in some cases, like in your personnel services on the general fund, we are running a little over in that area. And we did give out the retention payments, and this also includes the police department and fire departments, which we have a problem with our budget in those two departments. We also, The other funds are usually, they're running pretty much to budget on all of those funds. I know that I talked to, on the port, you know, we're gonna not be where we projected in our budget. It's gonna be, instead of 75% complete, this fiscal year it's gonna be like 20%, so we'll have some, changes that will need to be made in our budget for that. The enterprise fund is, the revenues are at 61%, and the total expenditures are at 60%, which is maybe just a little bit above where we should be. And for, anyway, the total actual is 17,487,000 to the total budgeted is 38.9. For revenues, personnel services, personal services are 5.7 million compared to 9.7 in the budget. And materials and supplies, the actual is at 4.2 versus 6.6. And other services and charges is 6.2 compared to 12,005 million in the budget. Anyway, we have a negative $446,000 loss or deficit in the total overall compared to our budgeted amount of $94,000. So we have an unfavorable variance of $540,000 at the present time, which is up from the same time last month. I do like to say that our sales tax revenue is down for the year. Our property taxes are down for the year. Our electric revenues did increase for the month of January, but also our costs. So the net change in just the excess revenue over the electric cost was probably about $200,000. So that concludes my overview of the financials.
Any questions from any of those? Also, what Deborah has that she's looking at, if anybody, any resident ever wants a set of what we get, you're welcome to have that. Just come to the office and we'll be glad to give you those financial statements. It also has a budget comparison. If anybody ever wants them, but any questions from the Alderman to Deborah?
I know when we spoke in a meeting, y'all took a $300,000 draw from the line of credit. Is that included in the financials that you just gave?
That would be in March, and it's still out there. We have not done anything with that money. It's still there. It's just that when we were at the end of the, before we had until March the 1st to decide whether we were going to need that draw or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were talking to the Alan Offner, it was kind of like at that point we were looking like we were going to need that money to pay the power bill, but we have not used it. But we haven't paid that power bill yet either. I'm
Okay.
still trying to get the money in so we can pay that bill.
But did I hear you correctly to say that expenses and revenues in that electric were $200,000 to the good there?
Well, just when you're looking at the revenue and the electric costs.
Gotcha. Okay.
From
Not
the
all
same
in.
time last month, you know, because it did go up, but we also, we had some big expense too. And this is January.
What, if things continue as they currently are, how far will our percentage be over budget?
I'm not real certain, I really haven't, because, you know, we are going to recognize some savings in our health insurance and in our workers' comp, which is, you know, the biggest thing in our budget is salaries, so that's something that we probably are going to be out in, we know that. But I think also with some of the other savings and supplies and materials and other services, I think we could possibly, you know, make it, or,
Good.
you know, depending on too what Project Blue does.
Right.
You know, we don't know how that pans out.
Which we'll give an update on that later,
Yeah.
but also, typically at the end of March is when your due date is on a lot of your license, your occupational license or things are due. That's going to improve that as well as reflection of your ad valorem tax. So those things will probably shift maybe in the April meeting. I'm looking for that. I hope it does. And, but anyway, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Deborah. All right, let's move on. We have occupational license, but we didn't have any, I don't think, this particular one, but we do have some outdoor going on to number 3 for sign applications. The first one we have is McDonald's Restaurant. Looks like they're going to be doing some facelifts, and they have that pretty well drawn out in your packet. Anybody have any questions on this? Do I hear a motion to accept that sign application?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Alderman Dory, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Probst, all in favor? Okay, the next one is, Laura Peavy has the A&L Suite Boutique, is she here? And she has got her sign application, if you've taken a look at it. It looks like it is attached to the pole there at the, what they call the Myers Complex. And they're gonna have a, looks like signage actually on the roof, maybe. On the roof line, or no, it's the front, that's the front. isn't it?
That's the fascia.
And also the signs. Any questions on this application? Not, do I hear a motion to approve this sign application?
Make that motion.
Motion made by Alderman Dory, do I hear a second? Second made by Alderman McCoy, all in favor? Okay. The next one will be St. Andrew's Thrift Store, which is by Delta Bank. And my only question would be the location of the sign in relation to the highway and going out on the highway. Is anybody here with St. Andrews? No? I would like,
Mayor,
yeah.
it looked to me like they're gonna change the sign on the front of the building to just show the times they're open. It says the same thing that's up, I looked at it today.
Oh, you did, it looks like the drawing is got some posts, that's my, was just one.
I think that's just the border, yeah.
Okay.
Because it says,
Store hours.
says, will the sign advertise the store hours? And I think they're just changing it. You got the name and then the store hours.
Now, normally these are approved or signed approved by Brian Allred prior to, or like these two are already signed. Has he not inspected this one prior to, or?
It was my understanding he did, he was out.
I got you.
He did, he sent these in and called, look at this, so.
Well, if this is on the, let's say it's premised on the fact that this is gonna be on the building, does anybody have a problem with the?
If it's replacing the existing sign, I'm okay with it, but I'm like you, it looks as though this illustration shows that it's on posts. And if it is on post, I think we need to.
Would y'all want to do a conditional approval? If it's on the post, we need to find out the location of where it's gonna be and whether it would hinder any traffic.
Yes, sir, I think that would be prudent.
All right, so if it's on the building where it's currently at, wherever it is currently, so y'all want to approve it based on that premise?
Yes, sir.
Anything like hear that motion?
Make a motion.
Okay.
Accept it if it's on the building.
Uh,
We'll accept it if it's on the building.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Dory, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next, we have the report on the DEQ audit of our wastewater treatment plant and request for board resolution to accept this audit. And I'm going to turn this over to Mark if he wants to.
This is our annual report that we have to do for the DEQ, as required to keep our permit. So it has to do with the sewer collection and sewer treatment. And we didn't have any outages, so we just need a resolution approved.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion that we have to make that resolution to accept this audit?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Alderman Gardner, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Dory, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mark, you're also number 5.
Yeah.
I want to discuss the 1991 case backhoe.
Well, we got our new backhoe in, so we need to get rid of this one. It's old and pretty well wore out, so y'all want to sell it or whatever.
Do you
We can
have
have
an
it.
approximated value?
I've been told we can get probably $5,000 for it, so that'll be the minimum bid.
Y'all Because I don't think that requires a motion, does it? I mean, we just,
You have to advertise.
huh?
You have to advertise.
Yeah, we'll advertise, but what I'm saying is, does it require a motion to just, okay,
Usually do, just to say,
all right, well, do I hear a motion, and we go ahead and advertise this equipment for, put the bid?
How many backhoes do we have citywide at this point? Not just in your department, but citywide, do you know?
4.
4, and this will leave us with 3?
No, that's legal for 4.
This will leave us with
Yeah,
4.
we got a new one, so we're getting rid of this.
So we got 2 in yours and 2 in, okay, 2 and 2? Okay,
Correct.
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
okay. Second, all in
who
favor?
made it?
What? Excuse me? Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, Alderman Best made the motion, second by Alderman Roy, all in favor? Okay, y'all know we've had some public meetings as well as we've discussed with the board last meeting about the Louisiana Department of Transportation traffic study. We felt like we would like to get board approval on what they presented. I think we've talked about it at length. I don't know if we need to go through that again. Does anybody in here have any questions about it, or any of the council? Was there some things that y'all wanted to, I think there were a couple of questions which I think we got interest to, why we maybe put it to this meeting. And one of those was, why was it on the south side of the Concordia Avenue as opposed to the, and there were several reasons. One was there was more outlets, I think, coming in or off the north side as opposed to the south was one reason. And the other reason was the schools and churches and other stuff was on that side, which
It wasn't about the south side, I think it was mostly about Clark Wilson Street versus any other street that went along. But the bike trail came into the whole conversation, on widening, coming around to the riverside, and put the bike trail and all that.
Mhm.
That was all in that study.
Mhm.
And the question was about widening that dead end on Wilson.
right.
It wasn't south versus north, that was just wide Wilson Street. And we explained, somebody explained that they were going to widen.
The term, yeah, and beat that up, yes.
The other question we had was, is it pole or park? Did you ever find out that? Pole or park? You know, whether we could take Wilson wide, leave the other part, or not?
Oh, the plan stands as it is. The Wilson, actually starts down at the Wilson corner. Comes, and there's nothing else on Riverside till you get to the levee coming down and by the school. And then it works from there toward the Spruce Street and on that direction. And as long as far as the money gets it. So that plan is, you can't, there's not a piecemealing of it. No, it starts there and it goes as far as it does, bike trail, parking and everything, up Concordia. And they feel like they'll get all the way up to where the plan showed on Locust Street. But that, I think it's Locust, the corner of Locust. So they expect to do that. But if the money runs out, it's up to us. If they get a block short of that and the money's gone, then we can say do it more. We're telling them, if this board, I guess it's up to y'all. We may have to come back, but to spend the money based on what the grant is for, will go as far as it will go. That's what it amounts. I expect to ask them to include the truck ramp and crossing area that we talked about across Riverside
Or Riverside.
as part of the project. I'm gonna ask them if they'll include that, so we don't have to pay for that either. I think they'll do that. It was their recommendation that that's the best way to slow traffic down, so I expect they will approve that as part of the project too. I don't think that in itself will shorten the striping down, I don't believe it will. But that's the way it stands. We'll go as far as they can with the parking plan they have, parallel parking and bike trail up Concordia. That's what it is.
But
And
we
the
did
green
ask the
space.
question, we did ask the question if we could do part of it and not do the other part. Did you ever ask that question?
Yeah, the plan is that they will go as far as the money will go. That's what the plan's for. If we want to change it, it becomes a whole nother deal if we say, we only want to go here and stop. I don't think that their indication is that
They did a study, Tommy, what they came up with was they were gonna spend that much money. That, they had that much money allocated, and they took it far as what they think it'd go. They gonna pay for everything, the engineering, the work and everything.
And their intent is to not only enhance the street, but also help with traffic flows in those areas as they move up Concordia. Once you get past, what that crossway is there, crosses Texas, yeah, no, up further than that, where they do that green space angle, the second one. After that is bike trails and parallel parking, so they want to go that far with it for sure, because that's the plan, is to take care of that whole deal, that whole concept. They're not gonna be, it's a whole nother deal if we go back to them and say, we don't want to do that, we want to do these things. Then they'll have to go back to the state to get approval of money for that project versus this project. It's a separate deal, so. In other words, we can't pick and choose parts of it.
I personally feel like it's a good project. Yeah, I know that it's in my district. Also, some of Trump Street is also included. But I don't think that we should not allow because it's in a certain person's district or anything of that nature because it's still Vidalia. And if it's an upgrade for the city, we should all be in favor of it.
Well, I'm concerned about maintenance in the long term.
I read
that's
that.
what we're stuck with in a lot of places.
And I read that
That's one reason we're having a tough
but
time.
we cut grass on the riverfront 24/7 all day long.
It's not
How would
just
that hurt? That would not hurt. That would not hurt or include even more, you know. I just feel like it's a great project. I feel like I'm asking that y'all support it, not because whether whose district it's in, but because it's a improvement for the city of
I don't
Vidalia.
think any member of the board made the statement that we would be for or against because of the district that it was in. And Kraft was talking about which side of Concordia, north side of Concordia or south side of Concordia. I don't believe he was making a statement about a district. I don't think that's ever been
That
brought
was
up.
a street north and south.
Yeah.
Street.
I don't remember anybody saying that it should.
Yeah, I know I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I did read the article, so.
I-
Yeah. Did you watch the meeting on the recording to hear
I
what
did
was
not.
actually
I
said?
actually
Okay.
just.
Because that was never said by anybody.
Okay.
I would like to say this, just from my, and again, it's gonna be what the board's pleasure is. I really think it's a good project. I feel like it's gonna make the streets safer. I think it's gonna provide a transportation for a route for children that wanna ride their bike maybe to school, that lives in those specific areas. I think it brings the traffic down to a more concise area to access Concordia Avenue in those areas. I like the deal. I mean, if we have a little bit more grass to cut, you know, if I gotta cut it up. But,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
and
about
I-
the grass,
and I-
it's about the streets, it's about
Well,
the
I'm-
striping, it's
you're-
about the, you know, I always,
There's-
my thoughts are, I mean, you may make it safer, but it's wide open now, you can see all the way down. You put cars on the side of it, you got kids that could come out from behind those cars. There's not much parking on that street at this point. So, I lived there all my life, and like I made the statement last time, and I made the statement made, you don't want nothing to happen, but something could happen anytime. But again, those are tax dollars are spent, you know, that, I just don't see the need for it, so that's my opinion.
And as a point of clarity, Wilson Street is the dividing line between
Absolutely.
District 1 and District 2. True. The left side would be District 2, and the right side is District 1. And the expansion of that curve will help both District 1 and District 2.
Absolutely.
And make it safer for everybody. I mean, that part definitely is a need, but I just wanted to see if we can separate the two. You know, maybe get part of it, but if we can't, then, yeah, it's safer for sure in that Wilson curve.
Maybe we
It's a bad
could, once we get
situation.
this approved or done, we could go back and see if there's any other studies that need to be done throughout the city. If there's funds available, but at this time, if this is what's all on the table,
The concern that, I'm sorry, I thought you were through, I did not mean to interrupt.
go ahead, go
My concern is the bollards. I can't get past the bollards. That would be installed where there is a bike path and the parallel parking?
All I can do is tell you what the purpose of that, and this is coming from the state and the engineers and the people that do this all over the state.
Right.
The purpose is so that when you're parallel parking, if you allow cars to parallel park with a bike trail on the inside, and you don't have those bollards, those people will pull in and park on the bike path.
Of course.
That's what they're trying to avoid, that's all.
The aesthetics of it is kind of what bothers me. But in large, like we went to New Orleans for the weekend and that street we stayed on had this same setup, this exact thing that they're doing with one exception. The bike lane was on the other side of the parallel parking. So you had traffic, the bike lane, and then parallel parking with no bollards. And the reason for that setup was given that the bicyclists, instead of having to go in and out between the parallel parked cars when attempting to cross, they're already in the drive lane, so to speak, since they're at this point vehicles. And there's not a bollard to be seen, and it works very well.
I don't think, here's the work for it. The plan as they presented it was for discussion and approval. That doesn't mean that it's set in stone.
Okay, that's something that we need
No,
to hear, right
I mean,
there.
that's not set in stone. We still can talk to them about altering it if we decide. If the mayor wants to have you, when they come to finalize it, to get started with it, we can ask them the question, find out what, it's not us trying to say, me trying to say, or the mayor trying to say, this is what we want. They presented it that way.
Right.
And I'm just trying to explain how they explain it to us. Without asking them their thinking about all that, I can't go any further. But we can still modify it.
And what Bill's saying is, we didn't really, they talked like it was something if we basically made a call, but I felt like it would be our duty to make sure that y'all had a say in what you want to do with it, and also y'all's.
That's right.
And y'all's comments. You're welcome to comment tonight if you're sitting out there how you feel about it. Because that's important, your input into it. Because, some of you will have to live with it rather than us, even though all of us
I think, Sabrina, that rather than batter that back and forth, because I have some other thoughts about that, but that's all they are. I think that we need to refer to the state experts and the engineers and the planners, let them address it where you can be part of it, anybody else that wants to, and see what they say and how you feel about it at that point. And if we feel like it's a better deal to swap that, or, I can see somebody riding down a bike, somebody opening a door on the car too and knocking them off their bike. So I'm just saying, there's all kinds of things that may come up in the discussion. It's not set in stone. We can modify it. We just mainly wanted y'all to be aware, Mayor wanted y'all to approve it, and want the public to be aware of it rather than just do it.
Right.
One of the things, and I like that idea because the width of Concordia changes as it goes towards that's a lower elementary school. And I think that Cypress, it runs at an angle and merges into the Concordia. At that point there, it's a distinct difference in the width of the street. And therefore, a bike lane on the inside would have to be rerouted to stay on the street.
That's true.
And if it were,
That's another.
like that suggestion there, it could continue as a straight run with no parallel parking on that particular section. Either that or you'd have to remove a lot of trees to widen the road there to get both parallel parking and bike lane. I personally think that it's a good project. And I believe that the bike lane would be more used by people running their exercising than bikes. I can't imagine that being that many bikes to totally utilize the bike lane.
Any other comments from, where's that? Yeah, that's right.
Yes, of course, we would support beautification and enhancements for the city. But our main concern, as it has been for several years now, would be the use of large trucks along Riverside and down Wilson. And in my opinion, of course, widening Wilson, it would be counterproductive if you're referring to safety, because that would only allow a truck to travel even faster around that curve. And our objective, of course, is to revert back to how there were no trucks allowed in that area at all, being that now it's the city center. And we're concerned that that historical part of the city is being overused by those large trucks, and it's being abused, and several rules aren't being followed. So I'm not sure that widening Wilson would make it any safer in reference to traffic, especially being that those trucks, they swing wide, and, you know, some of them aren't as concerned as others.
Can I address that?
In that neighborhood you have, where those trucks are going, you have 2 churches, residential neighborhoods. We have a child with autism, special needs. You know, plus all the kids at the upper elementary. So for us, you know, we'd like to see our historic district protected. And we don't think that, you know, widening Wilson is going to alleviate the problem that we're seeing of them tearing the roads up, because those roads were not built for 18-wheelers. They're tearing the roads up, they're dropping debris. You know, I texted you just the other morning with these handfuls of rocks of limestone they're supposed to be covering, they don't, they speed.
Hand size.
Yeah, hand size. They speed up and down the road no matter how you try to enforce it. The roads are being torn up. I was almost overtaken today on Wilson and really didn't even know what to do or where to go. But widening Wilson is only going to make the problem worse. And I just feel like in this historic district, with these churches and these schools, it's no place for 18-wheelers. Now, I'm not a city planner. I'm not sure where else you could reroute the trucks, but I implore you to consider rerouting these trucks.
And Destiny, I appreciate you saying that. That is one of the reasons why we requested that study to be done, and this was their option. They looked at all the things, and at this time, they said that's the only truck route that they're going to, you know, allow out of that. I mean, and they're choosing that, and I understand that if you're there, we're trying to put some things in place there that will slow them down. Other than that, if they're doing these things and things are falling off, that's an enforcement issue that you just, it's going to have to be. And I understand.
That would be the same amount of way they're going, which I'd say. They're not widening Wilson, by the way, it's the beefing up the turn, but we're also, remember, leaving out the part about the truck ramp and the crossing sign to slow them down right there where y'all are. It's gonna be right where you live. The truck crossing that they have to slow down to go over.
We're closer to
Table is
Wilson.
called.
We're closer to Wilson.
Which,
We're closer to Wilson.
I know, but it's gonna be that side of the bridge is what I'm trying to say. It's gonna be down at the corner, maybe not right at your house, but the next, just across the street, but right in that area.
The whole area was a no-truck zone up until not too long ago. And of course, in my opinion, it operated better that way. I would hate to try to create a permanent solution for a temporary business. In my opinion, the business, it's not going to be there long. We're going to make what concessions we can so they can run their business easier. Families like mine are more of a permanent fixture.
I'm not going to argue this, but that business has been there for over 30, 40 years now.
Not in that building.
Pardon?
Not in that location.
What business you talking about?
2J Ranch.
Been there.
Well, they haven't been using Riverside as their truck route. Where were they going before they were using
I can't
Riverside?
answer that. I
Because
don't know.
Lee, do you know?
They were going up Concordia, and then it got to be a problem with the school traffic.
Yeah.
When they had a study done and rerouted it,
And when did?
And then they have to cross the highway.
I had probably 5 years ago, probably.
5 years ago.
About the time they removed the no-truck signs.
Yes, 5 years ago. So we, you know, and over the past 5 years, it started out slowly. And now sometimes if I walk my child to school, I mean, there are sometimes 10, 18-wheelers flying by us as we're walking to school. What if one of those pieces of limestone that hits the street flies out and hits a child in the head.
It's a
I
lot
mean, it's
safer
a-
on the riverfront. It would be a lot safer to put that traffic on the riverfront versus.
I think it would be safer on the riverfront as well.
And the business is
That's
there
what
anyway.
we discussed.
Their
that.
business is there anyway.
That's what we discussed. We discussed that in our meeting last time. And the answers were referred back to the study. The study. And the 7 residents on Wilson and 3 down the riverside.
And I just want to tell you, we're also seeing these 18-wheelers and dump trucks coming up Linden now. It's upsetting to try to, I mean, between the bridge work has been a noise nuisance, and we understand that's got to happen, and it's for the benefit of everybody, both Natchez and Vidalia. You know, but during this time, we hear so much of the 18-wheelers jake breaking over the bridge, creating a large noise nuisance, the motorcycles. Now we have all of these trucks on Riverside, now they're coming up and down Linden. When do we get to let our children out and have, you know, we have the right to peaceful enjoyment of our neighborhood, as well as, you know, all of these churches and these schools, but we feel like that is kind of being taken from us with a lot of this traffic that has never been there before.
What was the state's reasoning for not using the riverfront?
I didn't, the state, they just gave us their plan. We didn't ask them. The riverfront never has been used. So there wasn't any question about that being used, I don't think. The only comments and discussion that's been made about that is hotel, doctor's complex, convention center, all the things that would be affected with the traffic through there. I don't think they even addressed strictly whether the trucks could go through there or not, but we did have a discussion about it. And they
We did
came,
have a discussion about
yeah, we
it.
did, and they talked about what would be affected with the trucks going through there, whether the chunks came out or whatever, you know, I mean, same story would exist. And back, I think that the trucks have been going down Riverside longer than 5 years. I think Daddy was living when that was.
Not to any large capacity.
No.
Not to any significance.
What now?
Not to any significance, no, sir.
But I think it's been around.
And that's gonna be, to me,
That's a
that's
whole
gonna be
nother
another
issue.
issue. That's, to me, that's a, and look, I hear you and I understand if I was in your position, I would feel that way. However, to take it through Riverfront, you're gonna have a lot of businesses, maybe people who go to the doctor's offices over, be the next ones complaining that's gonna fill up this room. We're not, and I don't mean this in a bad way, we're gonna have issues with the truck route coming out of there, no matter where it goes. There's gonna be issues and people are gonna have some complaints. However, I feel like we're trying to do something that will address the speeding of the trucks on that area and also making that curve safer for buses and trucks meeting each other, whether it's a bus or whatever. And if that's something to be addressed later, a truck route to go the other way out of town, you know, that might be something we can look at. But I really, you know, right now, this is what we're dealing with and this is what we have. And this is,
I do hear what you're saying.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you at this point, other than maybe at some point we will maybe look into what are the options to put a truck route, where can you go?
If you're at a business, in a business district, you expect to see commercial vehicles. If you're at your home and you're letting your children play outside, you should not have to worry about your children being run over by a speeding, and I understand that the speed bump will help with the speeding, but the risk will still be there.
There's a big table. It's a table, not a speed bump. But anyway, let's move on.
I'm gonna make the motion that we approve, this project. It was discussed last meeting, and it's been brought back for approval for this meeting, correct?
Yes, I mean, to move forward with it, yes. And I think with the condition that Bill knows, it's not etched in stone, and questions that Alderman may have that would come up, if there's changes that could be possibly made along the way, we might come back as they do that, but at some point, it's gonna be a limitation on this.
So by voting for it today, we are not setting in stone the plan that we the PDF files that I have, that
We
you
are
see.
setting, we are approving the plan in general of what it is. We're approving the overall general plan. If we want to make baller moves, or we making some
Right.
minor, that can be done.
So approving it today will at least make the turn at Wilson and add the speed table and change the stop signs at the exit of
And
the
the green
riverfront.
spaces and those things. But,
Right.
but the signage and the stop signs, we hadn't even told them what people said about the stop signs at the levee. So we're gonna have to tell them that, and that can still be discussed. I mean, there's minor things that we can do with it.
Tell us again what we decided when we talked about the stop sign.
All right, the stop signs, what was decided from the public meetings and from what we discussed the other day, actually was not decided, that's what I'm saying. But what was left as, you come down the levee, like past the doctors, and you turn left and you go over the levee there. You come down, there'll be, as it is now, a stop sign there. There'll be a stop sign straight across Riverside at the same location for vehicles coming from 2J or that direction. So that you don't have to pull up there and do like this to try to see Becker Road at, just stop right there. Then coming down Concordia, still a stop sign at that corner. Coming on Riverside the other direction where it meets Concordia, a stop sign at that place. So everybody has to stop at that section right there. But they don't, the ones coming down Riverside don't go all the way to Concordia to stop. They have to stop parallel with you stopping at the levee. We agreed with the people here in theory that in the town would have to pay this, put a stop sign coming down the levee and one on Riverside at the other place down the levee too. You know, where, so that they don't, so the same thing happens, the traffic coming.
I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And what else did you ask me? What did we agree? That's what you asked me, right, at that location?
Where did we finish on that conversation about the stop sign?
That's where, but we have not, again, they're gonna come with the plan, and they're gonna say, okay, what do you wanna do here and here and here? Or we can say, explain to us again about the bollards. Give us your total, give us a full deal on why, what, and what's the options this way or that way. We can still do that. It's not gonna affect the cost. Anything that's not affecting the cost, it's all about locking the money up right now, what it amounts to. The money's available, if we go any longer, we're gonna lose it.
On those roads, again, those roads, like you said, they're tearing the roads up. Are they gonna rework those roads to make them where they are?
You talk about on the curb.
18-wheeler compatible instead of?
They're not tearing any roads up, only the curb at Wilson's the only thing they're working on.
I'm saying, are those roads built for 18-wheelers down there? She made the statement, or somebody did, about the roads not being.
They are as well as any other roads in town.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking.
They
We'll
are
be
as well as any
responsible
other
for
road.
that.
I can't answer that, I don't know.
I had somebody call me today and ask about that, you know, about the roads being torn up due to, you know, that traffic.
That's a whole other issue as far as.
But it's our responsibility. It will be another maintenance
But it
issue.
doesn't, I don't think, but that doesn't have, the trucks have been going there for years. I don't, the truck route can be looked at, like the mayor said, we need to look at that as a separate to this deal. All we did is add to this deal a speed table to slow them down. Because that's something we added to the plan to help with the Riverside truck traffic. But the route is a whole different deal.
What is a speed table?
We had pictures at the last meeting. But it goes up and it flats on top, goes down, so an 18-wheeler carriage is messed up, but if you don't really slow down.
Okay.
It's built to slow down. 18-wheeler carriage.
Yeah.
And it's also
really wide.
pedestrian crossings on top, we're gonna put pedestrian crossing, slow sign, slow up pedestrians, that kind of, we're gonna do everything we can to slow them down there, but as far as another route, we can get that research separately. No problem with that at all. If somebody, if it's found out, I'm sure we'll have to do some surveys and ask people opinions and all kinds of things on that. If we're gonna talk about impacting another area, we need to have a study done by somebody who knows more than I know about what that means. That's a different issue.
Well, I personally, I'm listening. You're listening to residents, citizens that live in this area, who have visibly shown their concern about, and they actually live in District 2. But they travel that area all the time. And they have some concerns about it. And I, personally, I can't vote for it, and I'm listening. I'm listening to suffering speak. It's at the meeting tonight, and they're telling us that that is a problem for them.
Can I explain, please, if you don't mind? I don't mean to interrupt you. But voting for this has no effect on one way or the other on the truck traffic, other than us slowing it down more.
I'm listening to suffering.
I know that, but their issue, and that's a whole different deal, about changing the truck route will not affect whether we do this or not.
Even if we find another place, you know, I said John Dale as a joke, because you'll be impacting people that live on John Dale. That turns into a truck route. There's no way, shape, form, or fashion that I can listen to the suffering speak in this meeting and tell us that they have a legitimate concern. And the 7 residents on Wilson Street and the 3 that go down, they're just as important as people that live other places that don't have to deal with it. So Robert can go ahead and make his motion, and whoever's going to second it. But I'll vote, my vote's going to be no.
Well, we'll get to your vote when you'll have a chance to do that. Any other discussion?
I wanted to ask, Destiny, do you mind if I ask you a question? Do you have an issue with the parallel parking and the bike trail and all of the other stuff?
Well, I'm curious, because this is the way I see it. On the bike trail, it appears to me, from what I can discern from reading the plan, is that it goes from the lower elementary to the upper elementary. That's the span. So it's supposed to be geared towards these kids that are in lower and upper. But I know from experience now, having been at the upper elementary, that most of the kids are either being picked up by parents or being picked up by buses, so they're not going to use that bike route. It'll be used probably for citizens of Vidalia. I agree with what you're saying about the balances, because the bikes have to come out behind cars to turn, and that's going to make a safety issue. The other concern that I have is that it's on the wrong side of the street. Most of the neighborhoods that are going to utilize that are on the school side. And so, you know, it seemed to me that it would make more sense to put it on the school side, because that's where the neighborhoods are. And that's where the kids, if they're going to be traveling in between to the ball fields or to the different schools, that's the side of the road they're really going to need to be on for safety reasons. So I'm curious if there's a way to, if the bike route doesn't, you know, go over, is there a way to widen the sidewalk a little bit to make it more accessible, to make it nicer? I know the city of Vidalia has done a lot of good work on the sidewalks around here, so I'm curious if that would be an option, rather, because the parallel parking right next to the bike route and the bike route being on the wrong side of the street, those are 2 issues for me that just bring up safety concerns. So I'd like to see, you know, some work on safety.
But your question really is that, I think what we want to know is, does the truck route will not change one way or the other whether we do this plan?
No. My question, because they were so, just to be honest with you, because they were so eloquent and passionate about the truck route, and this would affect them in that neighborhood and they are here, I wanted to know how they felt about it. You know,
What about the overall plan?
The overall
Those
plan.
things are adjusted based on what the state feels like is the best thing to do, as far as having slower traffic on Concordia and controlled traffic and eliminating forget the truck route part, but the Concordia part of it. It's an enhancement project for the city in our view, but do you, again, as a citizen down there, do you agree with that? That it's an enhancement, or is it something that is not beneficial?
If done properly, it could be a wonderful enhancement to the city. But if done improperly, then it's going to create problems and safety issues that I can see. I think it needs a little bit more research.
Well,
you know.
Not be used by children very much.
Right.
and that, anyway, we can go on and on, like the mayor said, but properly that's a lot of different opinions. these are people that do it all the time, it's their profession, so we're kind of leaning on them, but they will adjust them.
That's kind of my fear, is that, you know, we all want enhancement, we all want to do something to benefit. My fear is that a yes vote, a yes, let's go ahead, is voting on it just like it was presented. And, I mean, that's the fear, is that, you know, if we say, yes, we think this is a great project, let's sign up for it, then we're bound to we're approving what has been presented. And that's what I have concern with, because I put it out on social media because I don't want my own opinion to be the only opinion I use to make a decision. And I'm gonna tell you, I got 32 responses of no on this because of the parallel parking in the bike path. And what is being said is that while narrowing the street is the explanation of doing that is to slow down traffic, it's almost going to what Mr. Ainsworth said, you're causing a little bit more congestion because now, you know, people are parallel parking in those areas anyway. I mean, the parallel parking is already there without the stripes, without all of these added tax dollars being spent. People are riding their bicycles anyway. I mean, it's almost working as it is. What I'm afraid is that if we lock it down to where the bike path can only be utilized on this side, then a child or a grown-up or a lady with a dog or any number of people having to step between two cars to cross across Concordia to get to the other side, which is now a little more congested because now we're giving people, you know, let's park all the way on both sides, all the way down. I see a safety issue in it. And I understand that the state is the professional and we're leaning on their opinion and, you know, they're trying to do it for the safety. But anytime you change something, especially in a small town like this, you cause mass chaos until everybody gets used to it. And that's my fear and concern. We're going to have parallel parking in areas where we have pickup and drop off, and we already have a really congested traffic area on pickup drop off at the upper, especially when talking about Laurel Street area and the street that goes right behind, I don't think it's Florida, but what's the name of the street?
Georgia.
There we go. I mean, it is a nightmare.
Well, I mean, we can still go back to, I'm concerned about letting the money go if we can get benefit out of it, that's all. If we go back to them and say we don't like the bike path, we don't want the bollards, we want the green spaces, and we want, you know, I think we can try that and see if that, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Right, we can try it though, so, but, you know,
If
what
we
if they say
no
no?
totally, then it's all gone.
Of course, and that is the only reason why I think we're spending this much time talking about something that should be a quick decision, because I don't think any one of us want to say, no, let's don't get anything to make Vidalia better. Absolutely not. We all want to make the entire, you know, each and every district better. We do, and this is the starting place for it that we would hope to continue. But I still see some safety concerns with the way that it's laid out. And what I don't want to do is say, yes, let's go ahead with it. We want to enhance Vidalia and then be bound and chained to what has been presented.
Well, why don't, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
If the alderman could name 2 aldermen to be a committee to review with the state people the plan before it's implemented, and discuss with the other aldermen, or however we do it, before it's implemented. Let them explain. I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to formulate some way.
We've offered that. We said that.
We had meetings,
We've done it, and they have a voice.
We had public meetings and didn't have this 32 people. Social media creates sometimes stir up.
But to get,
But the point is, it's either, do we want to enhance and decide how we enhance, or do we want to let it go? The state has asked me, and they said, they'd go this long, let this meeting take place.
Yes.
I'm not pushing, I want to try to figure out how we can make it be an enhancement that doesn't affect, that makes sense and is safe. If we can't do it, we can't do it in this discussion, it's got to be some other way. Just think about that possibility, that's all.
What's our time frame? How much longer?
They're waiting for tomorrow for me to tell whether to approve it. I don't know if they're going to say, they may say, if I say not yet, how much longer we got? I just asked them after the last meeting, I said it wasn't approved, wasn't voted on. They're going to bring it up in the next meeting. They said, when's the meeting? I told them, they said that, let us know right after that meeting. I didn't ask, but I didn't expect it to go further one way or the other. So I didn't say, what's the deadline? It's a little floating, I think, in their way, but I don't think it's much like, not till the next meeting. Are you thinking about a special meeting? Is that what you're thinking about?
We could be polled. We could be polled, but I just.
I have one question. The money that they're giving, is that limited to street improvements?
It's limited to this project.
This project alone.
This project?
This project.
Okay, so that's what I was curious. If the bike path did not come to fruition, would there be anything else that could happen in Vidalia that would enhance it?
Not
Say
in
like
lieu
a park
of,
for
not in
kids?
lieu of, no.
No, okay, all
It's
right.
just for this street project.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna do some charrettes with the people that this could affect. I mean, while we had to.
Personally, I've made phone calls and I've spoke to several of the people that live on that route, and I haven't got any. I know I even spoke to Ray. I haven't even got, a whole lot of negativity. I've talked to the neighbors that live on Linden. I spoke with them in reference to, according like Trump said, the 3 that live on, they were the only ones that actually complained about. And if Linden is an issue with the traffic coming down that street, try to put some barriers there where they don't come down if they're actually supposed to be coming down Wilson to Riverside.
I don't think they're talking trucks coming. Where you talking traffic?
Sometimes lately, we have
That's-
had
they're
dump
leaking
trucks
out.
and.
Again,
yeah.
that's an
That's a whole nother issue.
enforcement
Yeah.
issue. You write some tickets when they come down that street. They're gonna quit coming down the street.
That's my job.
But it's,
Huh?
I don't know why they feel that.
I don't know either, but anyway, let's get somewhere with this. I can say that the more people are gonna get involved in this, the more opinions you're gonna have. I mean, tonight, I feel like we had 2 public meetings, we advertised it, we put it in the papers. We had 2 public meetings, now we're gonna have 2 council meetings on it, and I feel like we're in the same spot we were, I think, to either decide to do it or move on to something else. And that's my opinion on it. I'm not all for having more public meetings, because we've had them. We've invited people, we put the plan out there, they've been available. And I think to keep on doing this let's make a decision. If you're for it, vote yes. If you're against it, knowing that there can be some adjustments made to it. And that's up to us I'm gonna let the council make that call.
I tell you what else could be done, if the town council would allow me, is we could take a week. I'm sure I can get them, give me a week. The council can say to me what they would like to ask about as far as modifications. And I can run them all by them and I'll call each, however I can do legally, I'll go see each one of you and show you what they say the options are here, here, here. We can take I don't know what we do if it's 3 to 2. I don't know how that's gonna work either. Still gonna be opinions.
I would say.
So it's either do it or don't, I guess. But we can modify it. It's just
To
how we
make a
do it.
decision like that, I think council, or we starting an open meetings policy, do that, calling and making the decision that we should.
It's like a committee, but I don't know if we could, I know you can have a committee.
You can't do individually and then get together, because that violates the open meetings law.
And situation and all that is good.
Even the stop signs at the bottom of the levee and
I know it. There's parts and parcels of it that are fantastic and definitely needed. They need to be done sooner rather than later. I agree with that wholeheartedly. My fear is that you saying, and not to discredit you,
No,
this is not an insult. You saying you can have some input and y'all can possibly change it in the future.
I agree.
That may
I don't
not,
feel good saying that.
right, that may not hold true once you say, yep, they
Well, I would
agree.
say yeah, at some point.
That's the only fear. I would feel more comfortable having a special meeting to say,
I would too.
we have the opportunity to visit this as the stages go on.
I'll
and do
see if
what's-
the guy that planned it can come here if we need to.
Yes. Okay.
It might have to be pretty quick for the money part of it, but I'll find out. Fair enough.
I would move my motion, I imagine, to move it to a table.
Well, I think we have to have a vote. Oh, you want, that's right. special meeting, okay.
There's no second to Alderman Gardner's motion. So, we did the discussion of the, of the project. There was a motion made and it was dies for lack of a second. Let's move on to item number 7.
I make the motion that we table this agenda item number 6.
Okay, yeah, you have to, put it back. Show it.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Dorey to table the board approval on the project. Second made by Alderman McCoy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, Louisiana Lashman, as y'all know, is an old rubber plant. Just to update on that, we are paying the last payment on the DEQ loan that the town wound up paying on, a total of $700,000 that the town paid on the building. There's one more debt that the town has got left to pay on that was a balance on a community development loan that was the obligation of Layell, and they defaulted on that, and the town had to start picking up those payments, and the total balance when the town started paying it was start back in, first one was December of 2015, and the balance on the loan was $219,000. If you look at total what we've had to pay DEQ as well as that balance on Layell, they come to a total of $919,000 that the town is having to pay for that. I'm giving you this update because to give you a status of where that is. That business, all the assets in the business were held by First Mortgage with Biz Capital, and they had the first mortgage on that. The city did not have a mortgage. We do have endorsements of the principals, which I won't name. However, we feel like that we will pursue collection in some form or fashion against the principals of this, and we will go forward with that. Our council has got some of the documents. We've already started some of the preliminary discussions on proceeding to go against the principals of Layell, those responsible on the debt. This other debt is being paid at $4,885 a month. The note that just is paying out was $15,000 a month, and it's going to pay out in December of 2019. So that we have that much longer going. However, we will pursue. I feel like that we are under obligation to do that. However, there are no assets to pursue other than endorsements and trying to get judgments on the individual sewer principals that we can go against. This is for information or any questions if anybody has. The good news is there's another prospect who is talking with Biz Capital to purchase the building, and we are, Heather and her crew are working on dealing with them, and we're working with Mark to have another prospect coming in, and it looks very favorable at this point. And we'll just let you know that. So there is some silver lining there, we hope. But any question on that? There's no action required. It's just to let you know that update on that we are paying that last note that is $15,000, a little over $15,000 a month. Remember that, some change just north of that. So that being said, any question from council? Okay. All right, flood control update. I got some good information. I visited with Corps engineers as well as visit with Guy on the phone on a daily basis on the flood situation where we're at. I have the Corps is telling us as of right now that the snowpack up around Minnesota in those states right now has not been that significant. There's one area in Minnesota that they're keeping an eye on. He said, but keep in mind that their winter's not over, and that it could still have some snowpack. But what they got right now is they're not looking at that being as significant as what it would be the rainfall that we're getting right now in the Ohio and Mississippi River Basin from Arkansas north. But right now there's a fall pretty well up the stem of the Mississippi River all the way to the Ohio River, and the crest, the newest crest is 57.2, which is actually going to take place on the 19th when it's going to start down, and there's a fall all the way up. And honestly, if you go to the the National Weather Service's Lower Mississippi forecast, there's some places that got a 3 and 4 foot fall in some, overnight. That's pretty significant falls. So we just pray for no rain up above us. So we did go ahead because before this was put out, we had to make a decision on our water well. And we've been having discussions, and we visited with some of the aldermen as well, and we felt like we had no choice but to go ahead and wrap our water well, because if you waited till it got to 57 and they upgraded that we could have put the HESCO baskets up in time to save it. You'd be working in water, and that's not the best thing. However, it did come as a cost. I will tell you this, that the total bid on the project to wrap the water well total right at $59,000. That was to put up and take down. However, I'm suggesting this time that we told them we would only want them to construct it. They did, it's in place, and they did that for $41,000. And I feel like the town has assets, backhoes and things like that we can take these things down and save the town money. The other option is to leave them up, especially on that lower well, and just leave that option up. I will also say that in meetings last week that there's monies now that's being talked about that are pre-disaster mitigation monies that's going to be available for communities like us who have these issues that are becoming fairly commonplace now, that we're having to deal with fighting a river, looks like almost annually. If some kind of issue comes up at some time of year. So there's disaster monies that will require a share, for example, on the water well. If they want, at Mark's direction and also any engineers, to raise the head of the water well up and above what would possibly be flooded, where you would never have to, put up a HESCO basket or address that situation. It would always be at a certain point above that. Aesthetically, they were going to come up, there's pre-disaster mitigation money that's going to be available to fix those on a permanent basis. Also, they said that you might even include the protection of the riverfront with some type of barrier that, but it's going to involve a share of, they're going to pay a portion, and also the city, depending on the cost of the project, to take care of this in the future. I'm just putting that out there, that's as far as it got, as far as that there's going to be monies out there available for that. I think that's going to be a bigger decision on, I think, something that we would be keeping council and all of us talking about, and also how much it's going to cost and what direction we would want to do. That's to protect the assets on the riverfront. Now, any questions on that as far as the flood?
When you talk about a share, that is between the town and the grant, not the other businesses that are located on the riverfront that we are not legally obligated to protect,
That's
right?
correct.
Would we, if we chose to do anything like that, would we reach out to them for participation funds?
My opinion is yes, we should. That's my opinion. Any other questions? Okay, all right, let's move on. Next is on number 9 is discussion of utility rates. I will tell you that I know that we've discussed rates early on in our administration, and it's been my feeling that we should have some studies done, and I think I said this early on, we wanted to see if we could get further along before we have discussions or having any kind of analysis on our utility rates, and also when we get these, have a comprehensive ordinance set in place that sets our utility rates. Something that's legal, something that is state approved, and it sets all the rates, all the way from your fees, there's nothing that's left out. And we have contacted Nollins and Associates out of Natchez, Louisiana, and they have given us basically a tier type quote on doing the rate analysis, and what they're going to come in and look at all your utilities, which is what we need. We need to look at everything from our sanitation to sewer to water to gas to electric, and they're going to come in and do that rate study. But we'd have to get approval for the amounts that it would cost. 2 of the bids that we've got, the cheapest, and the Nollins gave on the first proposal was $14,310, and I feel like we can discuss these at length if you want to, or also go into the rates themselves if y'all want to discuss that. And the other rate study came in from Brooks Harbor out of Baton Rouge, and theirs was a flat cost, and it was, I think it was $17,250. So that's two of the estimates we've got, and these two come highly recommended from people that I've talked to in the public utilities.
Now, we haven't completely analyzed as far as what exact services for those rates, because Mullins has a tier, right? So we don't know, we just got the Mullins today. We had the other one for a few days, and we hadn't, until we got both, we didn't feel it proper to call Brooks Harbor and say, have any discussion with them about it, till we had both. So we haven't discussed with either one exactly what they're doing for those.
And they're both willing to come in at no cost to discuss further the scope and how deep and detailed they would go with their studies.
In the short term, something that might help some residents in the city of Vidalia is a little bit longer than 8 days until you have a big late fee. Every time that I'm a day late, I'm $30, $60 I have to tap onto that bill, and it's only been 8 days since I've received it. So just in the short term before this study, maybe that could be something that we could.
When you receive it, when you receive it, how many days is it? I mean, once you receive it, how many days is it?
8 days. 8 days before the late fee kicks in, generally is what we get.
All right, but what I'm saying is that's when you receive it in the mail.
Yes.
When you receive the mail, it's not, you don't receive it the day it's due. What I'm saying is, how far ahead of your due date do you receive?
8 days.
Ahead of your?
Right, 8 days ahead of my due date, and so that's just something that I was thinking about.
How many days after the due date do you get access to late fee?
If you're past that 8 days, you get charged the late fee.
So what she's saying
She's
is,
received
for
her bill,
example,
and
if
8
she was
days later, she has to pay it on her cycle. I don't know if that's just that one cycle or what.
No, it's both cycles, because I get a bill on both cycles. And so to kind of illustrate her point, for example, she receives the bill on 3/10. It's due on 3/18. And if she pays it on 3/19, there is a fee added on, just as an illustration to you.
That's
Can I say
exactly
one
right.
thing?
Yes, sir.
She should be receiving a bill every month on the 10th.
We receive our bills about a week before they're due.
I know, but every month, right? Or
Every
the
month,
same day,
a week before they're due.
within a day or two of the same day, right?
Yeah.
So you know ahead of time when it's due.
Do you know the amount?
But you don't know how
And they
much.
jump $300 and $400. I mean, while your statement is very true, you know you're gonna have a bill about the same time each month. Would be great if you knew your bill was gonna be the same.
A lot of the older people, and a lot of the people that have low income in Vidalia live paycheck to paycheck. So if you have, and your pay periods are generally 2-week periods. That's just my temporary fix, something that I can see that can help people who are maybe a little more disadvantaged. Or at least 2 weeks, 2 weeks. You know it's gotta be paid. No one's saying that you wanna be late with your bill, but,
And it does seem that the time period has been shortened recently. We used to, I remember having much longer to.
We had 2 months, one month I know it was much, so we forgave late penalties in that month. That's because of the snow and ice.
Right.
When we were closed down. So yes, it was a little smaller gap. But I have to ask with our building department, but I thought people were getting the bills further than 8 days. I agree, it made it a little more. 10 days, where do you go? It's still gonna be the same issue. 10 days should be maximum before we build. You can't make it 30 days. We're already, the legislative auditors, a big part of what they want us to do is not let bills run late. We can't give away utilities. And the further we are from collecting, the more chance it is that people aren't gonna pay them, or they're gonna skip out, or they're renting a house and they leave. It happens all the time. So we have to keep that some reasonable length of time, before the penalty. It's just a penalty all we're talking about, the period before the penalty. We're not making people pay their bills that day or the penalty date. They run a penalty. I agree, bump it a day or two, but it's got to be reasonable from our standpoint.
or maybe a flat rate because of percentage. I mean,
That's a whole other.
I know when we don't have our houses rented, and the electricity's still on with our rent houses, I mean, sometimes I can get $1,200-$1,300 in late bills, due 8 days after we receive them. So, you know, fortunately, I have our rental property rented right now, but, you know, on those days, sometimes it's a struggle. And if I'm late, then it's a percentage, and then that is way more than just $30 to $60. So just my suggestion, just, you know, me kind of thinking outside the box a little bit.
What is the percentage?
Of the charge?
Does anybody know?
I don't know percentage.
I think the town does have an automatic draft program that,
That's true.
that there is no penalty on it. If they don't draw it out of there on the day it's supposed to be drawn, they don't charge a penalty.
I've had mine on automatic draft for 20+ years.
Okay, but when you look at senior citizens who are on a fixed income, everybody's not fortunate enough to just have money sitting there, whether their bill is $300, $400, $500, $600. With some senior citizens that I've talked to, don't get too much more than $600. Everybody's not affording it. And for the officials, you need to be looking at all the people.
The legislative
You need
officers
to
also
look at-
suggest that we work with elderly and people, and we do. We definitely.
We've
But
been
you know,
working with people
but-
on their bills, and
I've been
in the
meeting with
past, now something we've done in the past,
people every day.
we were told that you couldn't take a partial payment. When I worked at the bank, you were told if you, somebody came in with money, you
Or
got to
do
take a
payment
payment.
schedules, or do
Or work out something, you know, with people, we worked with them to help them through this time till consumption, till the usage goes down, because we had 2 brutal months, January, it's pretty tough.
But even matches, who shouldn't be that much more than what they are, with their utilities, they have a game plan where their citizens basically know each month what their utilities is gonna be. They got a plan out there that,
You talking about a level pay plan, there's pros and cons to that, and I'm gonna tell you why. What it does, it takes they do this for people who have been, long-time residents, and they have a history there. They will take an average from their previous year, take a total and average it. What happens is, that, for example, and you're gonna have the same thing, if you have an abnormally cold or hot year, and at the end of that year, you have a true-up at the same time, and that true-up is gonna come at some point. Sometimes it might be less, but sometimes it might be really more. It's gonna cause the same burden at that time when you have that true-up. Because at some point, you gotta do a true-up on a level pay plan. And that's one of the things that's problematic with that. I don't have a problem with exploring that. I don't. However, it's something that's gonna require more work in the office, and that's okay. But
I think after the impact of the utility bills that we saw last month, we need to be looking at everything we can do to provide a cushion for the citizens of the day.
we have worked with them on their bill, and if they can't pay it all.
We're spreading it out,
We're spreading it out.
we're spreading it out for them so they can take time to pay it out.
We get to our milder months, we've had a little, stuff here, but I think that's insignificant compared to what we had. Our costs doubled, more than doubled here. Deborah can tell you, our bill normally runs close to, around 275 to 300,000, and we're right at 600,000. That's just cost.
Was there an overage in what you received from the customers, of income versus what you had to pay out for that month?
Yeah, you're gonna have, that's, your town actually does, that is an income figure.
Yeah, but it was substantially more than previous months, was it not?
It was 200,000. That was just the revenue from the electric department versus less the cost of the electricity for the month of January was, year to date, it's 200,000.
And compared to average month prior to that, what was it?
I don't really know, but that was just for that once for the year. It was only a $200,000 difference. Well, per month, I compared it from January to December. I compared those 2 months to see what it was just for January. So I don't really know
The cost spiked on that, and it was now this was statewide all through the South. I mean, power companies all over the South had to have power cost or fuel adjustments that they pass on to their customers.
The major cost was gas.
Well,
the utility.
I was, if you're on gas and you have that, you know, talking to people, and I promise you, I've done a lot of talking. Some people that's on electric heat, those things are basically heating your house with a dead short. They use way more electricity than somebody's just having a fan to blow gas from a heat generated, gas generated heat. You know, the electric units we're seeing, people are getting killed on those if it was real cold. And we had some extremely cold weather. They're saying this was the coldest, you know, several days that we've had since in 25, 30 years. And I believe it. I mean, Mark Moros, and I'm telling you this, the Tuesday morning, I'm getting, at my door, I'm getting a knock, and he's panicking, saying, well, I just got a call from LEPA. They've got a call from MISO, said they're fixing to start shedding load, which means they're going to start cutting communities of their power. And I said, well, Mark, he said, I ain't never had that before. And I said, well, I said, what did they tell you? They said, well, you might get ready to shed load. You might lose your power. And I said, how much lead time they give us? He said, 15 minutes. I mean, if people still in bed, that would have been critical. So we jumped into hyperspace trying to inform the people. You know, when you get that call, we said we got to inform people to start making preparations if they do that. That's out of our control. We can't control that. The system was overloaded, and it couldn't put no more on it, and they were fixing to start shedding load. We had to make some tough decisions. I will say that by 9:30, we had the convention center ready with generators ready to take care of the people in the event we had a loss of power, that we could take in a lot of people and try to get them cool and get them warm.
We appreciated that quick response, and we also appreciated the fact that it went out on social media and it was easy to share with other residents here in Vidalia. So
It was
thank you,
scary.
City of
I didn't
Vidalia.
like it. It was a situation that we had to address. And when you see what the cost did with natural gas and electricity during that time, it spiked. I mean, all that power spiked, and all these power companies pass it on to the consumer. They pass it on to who their users are. And we pass on, you know, based on the rates and based on the fire costs, we pass those on to the people. And it was a very severe power cost adjustment. I'm not going to tell you no lie. It was. And I can't help what the Lord sends as far as the weather. I can't do that. However, we can do what we need to do to study rates. We're having meetings that we will, and aldermen involved, as well as ourselves, we're going to have detailed and discussions about these things and make a decision on this. And we'll probably start sometime this week or next week having more meetings. We've had a couple meetings. They've been good meetings, I feel like, and we're going to get this straight. And we're going to get the town where it needs to be. And for example, one of the things that was discussed, and it's going to be coming out soon, is the results of the legislative audit report, is our water plant is, if you look at our budget, it's showing a $300,000 to $500,000 loss. Well, now how does that happen? Well, it's because in the past, rather than change the water rate, it was always just dumped into your electric rate. And so really, you're out of compliance with state statute by losing money on that utility. You're supposed to be making enough money to deliver that water, also to maintain that water, and also to take care of your general fund activities that don't have the income to support those. Okay? So if you get water right, the other can come down on the electric and get those rates right. We're hoping that's what these studies are going to help us get right. And that's a lot of the work we need to do.
That, to me, I mean, we need to do a study on the rates, absolutely. I just figured that out with a calculator in the 30 seconds it took you to say that. I mean, do we need to spend $20,000 for somebody to tell us if we're running a deficit in water, what we need to do to the bill? I mean, at $300,000, that's $25,000 a month. Estimated 2,500 customers, that's an extra $10 per month on your bill. On the gas bill, you have a front end $20 fee. So you charge $20 plus usage. If you did the same thing to the water, and let's say you did $750 front-end load on the water, $750 front-end load on the sewage, that gives you $15 extra per customer. That's gonna take care of your deficit.
That's correct. I've done those guys, I've done those too. I'm just using an example of some things we got to do. But yes, yeah, I can go in there and do that. But where should that electric, or where should that power cost or electric rate be?
Well, if you said that we can't do anything with the electric rate until we get all the other ones in line.
I'm talking about to look at the town as a whole, and what we have. There's, the town, okay. The town has ways to get income. Number one is ad valorem tax. The max, some number of meals, the max that the town can make is 7 meals. The town's 3.39, I think. You know, less than half of what a lot of municipalities are charging their people to live in the town. So that's cheap. Jerry Clark tells me we're the cheapest in the state. That's what he tells me, and I believe him. Now, that brings in the town a little over $100,000, $130,000, $140,000 a year. Okay? That's income that a lot of municipalities might make, get $500,000 or something a year. So it does affect the overall running of your town. Your police department, your fire department, the administrative offices, they do not generate money. So how do you pay for them? You pay for them through these other services. You pay for them through the ad valorem tax. You pay for them through your occupational license and different things, and also from your enterprise funds, which is your utility rates. I mean, which is utilities. That helps support, you know, the rest of your general fund. And you know that. I mean, I'm just trying to educate the people why we need to make sure we get this right. And I feel like that we need to do that. And even Silas Simmons and some others said, get the people who are professionals to do this for you. Because I can't tell you what that water plant's gonna need in infrastructure costs to maintain it at this level. I can't tell you that. You can't, I don't know if Mark can. How much money it's gonna take him to maintain the infrastructure of that water plant. How much money should it require to do upgrades and keep up to date with what needs to be done on that water plant?
Well, let me ask you this to that end. Do you have a system in place now with the profit that we're getting from all utilities, which I know some lose and some, you know, are profitable? Do you have a plan in place with what you're charging now to set aside money for future repairs and infrastructure on that?
Do I have a plan?
Yeah. Do you have, are you saying, okay, if we're getting profit, you know, we're profitable in overall utilities, right?
Yeah, your overall utilities
Okay.
they are overall profitable, but right now, when you have to pay for the support your other general fund, you're tight. Matter of fact, you're probably a little short right now. We're short right now.
So we need to cut expenses
Yes, we do.
substantially.
But we need to cut expenses, correct. But now also, we need to cut expenses, but we've also have had to pay for a lot of expense and costs that are necessary that the town is obligated to, and I can start naming a bunch of those. We just named these notes we were obligated to pay. You default on them, the town defaults. We hadn't even talked about LEPA unit number 1, which the town owns 10.3% of a natural gas power generating plant in Morgan City. That was supposed to be finished construction in September of 2015. That was the year before, you know, we came in office, okay? That plant was running behind. It's like a construction loan. That plant cost $120+ million. That plant came online, guess when? May of 2016, right before we got in office. The loan was put on a monthly payment, okay? Our share of the monthly payment that the town is obligated to, that we have to write that check for, just the note is $65,000. That's our portion. Plus the cost of operating that plant has been running, that's calculated to your power cost. So in the summer of when we took office, people were saying, my utility bill's never been that high. And I agree, it never been, because the town had to start calculating that cost of that plant into that power cost adjustment to be able to pay for it, because that's the only way you can do it. So what I'm saying is, there's a big dynamic here working that I hope that we can get together with these people, sit down and look. Yeah, we need to make cuts. I agree. And there's some decisions we're going to make, and you know we've talked about those already.
Yeah, I got to say one thing, tell them about the other part that we talked about what you did
Okay.
to save the people money, that now you had to put back in
I
place,
did.
so they'll know that. 'Cause
And
that's what I think we
okay.
need to get out to the
Okay.
public, to know
The
what
big-
you did to put back in place, to be able to save, now you put it back, so that's another increase in our utilities, and that's
Okay.
why they are higher.
No, okay, I'll be glad.
But it's, that's what you explained it very well, but they need to know.
Okay. Go back to when we had to start making these payments, and people, we went through a brutal summer in 2016 where people couldn't pay their bills. And because we had, y'all remember how long that summer went? It almost extended into October, November. And we were having delinquencies grow. Matter of fact, the legislative auditor caught that, said delinquencies are growing. It was because we had these utility bills people couldn't pay. So what I did, I got with Deborah, we sat down, and in that calculation, there's something called the static factor. That the previous administration changed and bumped the static factor down, which made the power cost adjustment higher. That was costing the people more by that. And I said, we've got to give the people relief. That's what I keep saying when they say that I said I was going to cut rates. I said I was going to lower costs. I raised the static factor, which in fact made the power cost adjustment go down. I did that in September of 2016. Up until December of 2017, it just went by, and I have the calculations to show y'all. We have this. It has cost the town in revenues, and when I say revenues, it didn't go in your utility bills, it didn't go in the industrial utility bills, it didn't go in church utility bills, $2.1 million. Okay? Please, paper, to get that right. $2.1 million. I didn't go fanfare out there saying, look what I've done. I did it, and now we are getting to a point, because there's some monies that are owed to us, that is starting to cause a crunch on our cash. So in January, before we had this crazy weather, Deborah, we have staff meetings and looking at our cash position at all times. I said, look, we're coming up, we're fixing to hit the springtime when everybody's usage is going to go down. Okay? I said, well, we need to take a look at doing something, because right now we're going backwards rather than maintaining. So I changed the static factor back in January, and I said, we're going to do it for 90 days and see what it does. And I did not know we'd have the weather that we had. Now, you will say, well, how much did that cost me? When I did the calculations on my bill, the ones I did the calculations on, it was going to cost me an extra $20 to $30 a month on my bill. And, you know, it's just, again, it's something I didn't want to do. I did it because we have got to make sure that we keep the bills, and it's still tough to pay the bills, but this hasn't taken place yet. You've only gotten one bill, I think, maybe two, that might have that adjustment on it.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Something I think that the people should know, and I don't mean to get in anybody else's thunder, but we are going to continue with meetings with the aldermen, where we now are going to have an agenda toward developing the budget, where we want to sit down. Deborah and I have talked about this, and we've got an agenda to send out for the next meeting. And we're going to have as many meetings as we can for everybody to show up to one at a time. And we're going to take certain sections of the town. We want to know what you want to do with that department, with that section, with this issue. What are your opinions about what to do to save money, to reduce, to get us, we still have to operate. But right now, without the static factor being readjusted, we don't know that we would have been able to run the town at the level it's at. Okay? So we got to do something in both areas. We got to take care of this expenditures, just like you're saying, Sabrina, and try to find ways to reduce. And the mayor's been saying, we know we got to do it. Well, this time, what we want to know, just at least as a starting point, is what y'all see in this department, and this issue, and this expenditure, what you want to do. And what this is for is for having direct input in determining how the budget is formulated. So that, I want people to know, that's the process we're going to go through starting next week. We're going to start scheduling those meetings. So remember, when you get an email or something about when can you come, pick a couple of options so we can make sure we get no more than two. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through the same agenda with each alderman, and we're going to go to the next few departments, or next agendas. And we're gonna nuts and bolts it. We're gonna get down to where we're not trying to hurt anybody in the city, we're not trying to deter services, any of that, but we're trying to whittle it down to where we get that budget down as low as we can do it to operate, for what it's worth.
But
Okay,
that,
I would like to say one more thing.
go ahead.
I have requested, and this came from the Louisiana Public Service Commission, this is power providers in the state and their rates that they charge to the residents. We're at the, now just keep in mind, this is power companies, what you've got Energy Louisiana, you've got Clico on there, you've got Point to Pay, you've got Concordia Electric, you've got SWEPCO, Energy Gulf States. The cheapest one on here, SWEPCO, and I don't even know what that is 8.2 cents, okay? Energy of Louisiana is a little over 9 cents, okay? These are power companies. This is what they do. They provide power. And our residents were paying 11.741. This was January of 2017. Okay, here's where I want to go with this. Okay, you take all these like Concordia Electric, Energy Louisiana, they provide, that's what they do. They provide power to the people who are residents, okay? So picture this, here's Energy Louisiana's got all these people that they service. They run a wire to their home, and they provide them electricity. Their rate's over 9 cents, okay? And that's all they do. Now, what if I went to Energy Louisiana and said, now, Energy, you've got to provide them fire protection, police protection, street lights, upkeep on all that. Do you think they could still do it at 9 cents? Or would you think they could deliver this? And here's the thing I'll put over any of these. Our guys in those brown shirts out there can work circles around all these other guys. What we're getting is a town, I appreciate what you guys do. I really do, because we have the best. And when you consider the cost of the other things that we have to take care of, you know, we want to get it right. But I want y'all to also understand, if you look at what Energy's charging their customers, they're not having to provide all these other services, these general fund services, police protection, fire departments, police units, and all these things to keep us safe and also maybe save our life. Do nothing.
Nor do they also have the benefit of the hydroelectric royalty payments that were originally intended to offset the high cost of electricity. So let's don't forget that. I mean, that's a benefit that we have.
I don't, and I promise you, that relationship is the only reason why any of this stuff is here.
Oh, absolutely.
There ain't
And
no other reason.
eventually
That's
that
the
is
key I'm
ending,
making.
and where will
That-
we?
You wouldn't have any of this one for that.
That was my next
A small suggestion.
Okay.
I would like for all y'all to realize that helping with utilities is going to help every individual in this town. And it's going to turn and make this town very, very strong. What I see, I buy power from 3 people, personally, okay? The city of Vidalia has the nicest equipment of any of the companies I deal with. Now, that comes at a cost. A cost to who? A cost to the consumer. Okay? Energy can provide it cheaper, but Energy don't have as nice of equipment as, that I see. We got the best of the best. We just talked about going out and buying a backup. Did we get, what did we get? Did we get what we needed? Or did we just go out and say, hey,
No, we needed
we
it.
want a big shiny one that looks great and can do that and that?
Actually, Energy changes out all their bucket trucks every 5 years. Some of ours is over 10 years old, so.
I'm just telling you, what I see personally,
What
when
you
we get
telling us
things,
wrong.
we get the best of the best. We have some nice equipment. And that comes, if my power goes out to the lake, I get one guy in an old truck comes and gets it back on. If my power goes out at my house, I get a couple of bucket trucks and probably 4 people. That comes at a cost. A cost to me.
I will say this, during that cold snap, my lights never blink. Thank you.
No, they don't.
Well, that's
They
thank
don't.
goodness
No,
for
they
the
don't.
360, that's what's,
But
that's
everywhere
a
you
great
look
part
within
of
this
that.
town, you're talking about expenses and things like that. There's city cars and city equipment and city everything everywhere. We've blown the expenses out of the water. Y'all got to control that and take some of this burden off the utility company.
Well, Raymond, I will say this, I feel like we have cut a lot of expenses. I don't want to, some of y'all are tired of hearing what we have cut and what we had to pay for, that we were obligated to. Tired of hearing that. However, we're down to it now. We had to get a year behind us of historical data and spending and where we're at to go forward. Okay, again, I don't want to go back to what all we've done and what we had to overcome to get where we got to. We're getting to the part where we're starting to get into the meat of it to start making, hey, do we really need this? Do we really need the convention center? Do we really need this? Okay, that's something else. And I told Deborah, and we was in staff meeting, I said, you take any other town our size, we're sitting on assets of over $50 million. Okay, for a town with 4,299 people by the last 2010 census. $55 million, okay? It's like me, if I inherited a $20 million house, I don't have the money to support it. I don't have the money to pay the expenses on it. So we have got a lot of expense that we're handed and we got to deal with, and it's gonna take some more time. We're hoping we get down to it where we can start getting these things lined out. Please be patient with it. I agree, yeah, our bills are high, but I promise you, this was a.
But you gotta get it to the point where people are thinking about moving into the day for utilities instead of moving out of the day because of it.
Well,
And that's taking place.
That's taking place all the time.
It's happening right now. What we have the lowest ad valorem and we have the best city service. There's not anybody in this town that's gonna argue with that fact. And the discussion of lowering the utility rates always seems to circle back to, well, the guys who take care of it are worth it. Absolutely, they're worth every paycheck that they get. They are worth it, and that is never the insinuation of any alderman on this board, is that the reduction in utilities should result in the layoff or firing or lowering of pay of any one of those guys that you praise every time we talk about it. And the insinuation that that is what that will cause is getting old. Because that is not.
Were you talking to me?
I am.
Okay, whoa, okay. What you were insinuating about lowering the rate to 9-cent flat rate, they would have to be laid off because you didn't even know how much money you were talking about. At that time, it was over $1.5 million.
Oh, I knew exactly how much.
Okay, well,
I knew exactly how much, and I also.
somebody would have to go, some people would have to go home on that.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not
Or
necessarily.
somebody would quit getting their garbage picked up twice a week.
But here's the thing, here's what I heard when you said we had the hottest summer on record. It lasted all the way to October. We had the coldest winter in several years. In both of those times, what I heard you say were people couldn't pay their bills. That's what you said.
That's right.
So we, as this administration, as a team of very intelligent, business-minded individuals, should be able to come up with a way to make that never happen again. We've got lowest ad valorem, best services, we're still losing population. People are moving out of here as fast as they can because anytime there is a substantial weather change or a season that lasts a little too long, they can't afford to pay their bills. We had a school closing. We should have capitalized on that, gotten people in this town to fill up the vacant houses. We've got the potential for 400 jobs to come to this town. We should be capitalizing on that and going ahead and this rate study should have been done a long time ago. But now we're to the point where we should be capitalizing on the potential for the increase of population, and we're just now having this discussion. After 5 months of me trying to get this done, trying to get this on the agenda, trying to have the discussion, now we're finally to this point and we're always playing catch up behind the game. We're seeming to always do that.
Okay, I hear you, that's your opinion, but that's not reality.
Is it not reality? I've been trying to get this on the agenda for 5 months.
Because it was something, I'll refer to our CPA, Deborah, what would have happened if we had a 9-cent flat rate on our electricity bill? Where would we be?
I honestly don't know, Buzz. I don't know, it just doesn't, I know it doesn't appear that we would have received enough revenue to cover the costs that we had, that's for sure. So I would figure we would probably be in a hole a lot worse than we are. But I'm not the expert either, so I don't
Well,
like to
that's
be.
why we're getting with the experts, and that's
Put
the
in the
key.
spot
We're
of
getting
making that
experts to talk about this. And they insinuate that I'm using these situations, Ms. Dore, is wrong, okay? I'm trying to work here and give the people a good position of where we're at on this stuff. And you're looking at me and saying that we're not fabricating these things. I have nothing, anybody want to come and look at anything we've got in our offices is available to you.
I don't accuse you of fabricating.
And that, I want to make a statement. I don't think you fabricate. The point is, just like you said, it comes to the point where if you're gonna have what we have, you're gonna pay for it, and you're gonna pay for it, or you ain't gonna have it. Or you're gonna let some of it go and make it less. And that's the only option you got. And all of it comes from personnel. I guarantee you, the personnel is what? And I go back to my statement when I started. Attrition. We've attritioned the person, but we should have been doing that from day one. Less. Any organization in this country today, what have they done? They've cut. More with less. We're not talking about laying off. We're talking about more with less. And that comes from, again, supervisors and the people that are in charge of the supervisors, making sure, not talking about anybody, but we have to control what we have. And that comes from management. And management is the key. And I'm going to say that again. Management is the key. Management is what we got to have. I'm not saying any of these employees have a problem. No. Management is the key to controlling what we have in this town. And again, you're the main one. You're the top dog.
And that's why
Then you got 5 Indians under you, so we got to make sure.
And I will say
those
this.
people are where they need to be.
If people are moving out of the city of Vidalia, it's for more reasons than just because they can't pay their utility bills, because they don't have jobs.
School is another reason.
There's a bunch of things.
But that's the things that you, as the administrator, have in your bailiwick or your control, the job. If there's no job in town, somebody's gonna leave. That's happening. And you refer to what happened in the 2010 census, 4299, it's less than 4,000 people right now.
The next census is
So,
2020.
and we're losing them every day. And this discussion started with where you had a shortfall with the water. And the answer to that is maybe increase that. Is that right?
Well,
What about reducing
we don't know what level.
costs?
Well, you got to do it, unless
Do
they
you know where the
Yeah.
shortfall is? What steps have been taken to find the shortfall?
Do what now?
You know there's a shortfall. We've spoken about a shortfall of water over and over and over again. What steps have been taken to correct it?
Give the rate to somebody tell us what that level should be.
What steps were taken 8 months ago when it was brought up?
Because we wasn't ready to make that determination at that time.
But you knew you were losing money.
Yes.
I mean, I'm running the business.
Yeah.
Every
We knew
month I
we
clear
were
out.
losing
If
money
I'm
on it.
losing money, I plug the hole.
We knew we were losing money, but we also knew we were making too much on our electricity. So we gotta get that right. We want to get this right the first time. We want to get it right. Now, the other thing I'll say is, one of the things we have been pursuing, and I keep saying this, we're not gonna see a change in this town until we get jobs here. Heather's fixing to give us an update on Project Blue. There's some other things going on, and all I'm telling you is we're working on these things. We're working on getting people here. I'm not in for, doing these developments as, retail, because we don't have money, people have money in their pockets.
Well, I gotta tell you, every utility bill I pay, I think about moving, and that's sad. Because this is my town, and I live here and I love it. But every month I think about moving because I can't afford my utility.
Well, here's what the other ones are charging in relation to it, and I don't know what the other costs, if you take all the things considered, I don't know what that is. I've done some other tests as far as people, what they pay in taxes and their water and all that other, and I feel like we're very good with where we are as far as what we provide.
Is the city of Winfield on that list?
No, this is strictly the utility providers.
What, does Winfield have their own utilities?
They do.
Well, then what's that provide? I mean, can you compare what
They,
they're doing?
Winfield gets theirs from Legal,
They're what?
gets their power from Legal, same people we do.
And do they pay the rates we pay?
No, they do not.
Do they pay the rates, does the consumer in Winfield pay the rates that we pay?
Their consumers pay less than what we
They
pay.
don't have all the stuff to pay for it.
But that's the thing, Ray, they don't have what we've
If you
got.
want, if you want to look like Winfield, if you want to look like Winfield and live in Winfield, that's what the question is. right?
No, I don't want to do that, but I do want to see this city, this town now, move in a direction where they're not spending the amount of money that we're spending and dependent on hydroelectric royalties or whatever that might come. It might not come. And that's, I think, expressed in what we hear from Miss Deborah every month. We just borrowed more money, didn't we?
It's on standby if we need it.
It's on standby.
But we have monies that's coming.
And
We
you
have not
think you're
collected.
gonna use it?
Pardon?
You think you're gonna use
We're
it?
trying not to.
Well, I'm hoping that's the case, but I'm hoping you're finding ways not to.
We're
And
working.
that's the real crux of this thing. It's just like, handing your child a credit card or a cell phone. You've got to get control of what is happening.
I understand my task completely, Ray, and I appreciate your comments. I understand what I gotta do. I do, I promise you I do. And there's a lot of other people that are in these discussions that we talk about, and we do them 24, we meet all day and talking about a lot of these issues. And there's a big dynamic here working. And we want to make sure that we're going to do the right thing and do it the right way. And we want to.
Well, social media is pretty big now, but,
Social media, good and bad.
I've seen recommendations to people who are gonna move into the area, do not move to Vidalia because of their utility rates. And that's on social media.
We have to change that to
And
make it a,
that idea really needs to have the adjustment. I want people to move in here.
I do too.
I've
We can get some
said
jobs.
it a bunch of times. This town is smaller in population than it was in 1963 when I left high school here. By a goodly amount, and it's falling every year.
I hear you, Ray, I can tell you this, it's not my fault.
It's not, and I'm gonna debate on that, some of that.
And nobody is blaming this.
It is my problem, and I'm dealing, we're dealing
It's
with
not
that
your
problem.
fault, but again, you inherited things.
I
You're right.
You're right.
Let
So
me
all
ask
of
you,
them,
let me ask you about Unit 1.
okay.
Don't take it personally.
Do we purchase or will we purchase any electricity from Unit 1?
That's put into MISO. MISO controls what they generate. And MISO buys all the powers generated by unit number 1.
So we buy from Hydro, we sell to LIPA, and we buy from LIPA, but we will never sell to or buy from Unit 1.
It reduces, what happens is it does generate electricity, and it reduces the cost on the LIPA one, or our cost would be a lot more.
Is
You
it
know what the
reducing the
cost-
cost even though we're
reduction-
currently paying a substantial amount per month?
Yes, it is. I didn't know that either, because I was
Well,
confused.
what she's saying, and by that, let me put this out there. By leaving unit number 1, providing this power that's coming off the unit, which MISO controls all these power generating units as well as the hydroelectric plant, and can control how much generation they put out on the grid, what they call the grid. If, for example, there's no demand, there's not a lot of demand out there, they call these different companies and they curtail their production of power, and they gotta cut those things back. With that plant, MISO makes that call of how much they put out there on the grid. If this, plus you get what they call, I'm trying to remember what they call it, some kind of formula, that if you have availability to put this power out there, which they can generate up to 62 megawatts and peak out at 65 megawatts, they give you credit on what you can put out there on the market, on the grid. And your cost, because you can provide that, is cheaper than because you have that availability to give them if they need it. I know that don't make sense to you, but it does decrease your cost that LIPA passes on to us to some degree. I know it. And I'll give you another thing.
So
One of
does
the
that
things
mean you're making more off of utility customers since you're
Pardon?
having lower costs?
Let me finish and I'll come back to you. And I'll give you another example. One of the things that we did meet with is costing the town money with the hydro. The hydro's not been able to generate full capacity because right now they're mandated by the Corps of Engineers. They're allowed one gate change a day, a 24-hour period, okay? So what they have on the hydro, they have gates that if MISO calls them, they've got to close gates which keep that flow from going through those turbines and generating power, okay? If MISO call, one of the problems that you've been hearing us talk about the red gum line, that when the load, they're generating, they're 550 megawatt generating power plant when they're wide open, okay? And if they're generating all this load, they're generating all the time, and this line up here, with no demand coming off that line, it heats up and they're scared it's gonna trip a lot of stuff. They'll call the hydro and say, you gotta close those so many gates we don't need but this much power, okay? So when they close that gate, they can't change that gate again for 24 hours. Well, in most time, that's gonna happen at night when all the power's going down, plants are shutting down. So what happens? They're going through, the hydro is not being able to generate wide open during the day when the demand is high, and they're having to turn back on when it might be still low until they can get back in a cycle where they're high generating again until MISO cuts them back again. Does that make sense? Y'all understand that as far? So one of the things we're doing, because the Corps is concerned with settlement, and you've been hearing a lot of stuff in the government now about nutrient loading and stuff in the river, we're trying to get them to allow multiple gate changes. So if MISO shuts the hydro down in a low generation time and they can't produce their power, when the demand does go back up, they can open their gates and start generating. So we're trying to work on that. We're going to work with. So and kind of some of those same things happen with LIPA with all these because LIPA is got several units. They have a rotor maker. They have a coal-fired power plant. And right now, coal and some of those are a cheaper option, even though they're not as efficient as this plant. But this plant's had some issues with it. It's been in a lawsuit, which I'm having to go back to Lafayette Thursday because settlement's fixing to be struck with the contractor. And there's a lot of issues with this. This plant is basically it's costing you a lot of money. It's saving you a little. Okay, and the only time this plant's going to become where it really is something that's going to almost cover its cost is if natural gas prices go north of 10.
Why is it added into the power cost adjustment, which is used to determine what our cost of generating power is? If this is a business venture of the towns, why is this money that we're paying for Unit 1 added into the power cost adjustment so that the residents are having to pay for what is currently a failed business venture of the town?
How else you going to pay it?
They gotta pay for it one way or the other.
Well, does it have to come out of the power cost adjustment so that when a customer or could we cut 1.2 million out of our expenditures and absorb that cost of Unit 1 on our own without having to add it into the power cost adjustment? In some cases, doubling the power cost adjustment from month to month.
That's you still going to have to pay for it. It's the liability of the town.
It is the liability of the town that is currently being used to determine how much the town is charging each individual resident. It's going into the formula, but it's not a cost of generating electricity, so it should not be factored into what we are determining their rate to do.
We can't reach in and pull out where that's going to be paid for when you got all these other things that figured into the whole thing, the whole picture. You can't go pick out that and say, we're not going to pick, I mean, it's one big thing. It's one big issue.
The only thing I have to say about this question about that is if the power cost adjustment for that is a wash and what our cost is for it and what the people pay for, matters not whether it's there or not. You follow what I'm saying?
No, I follow what you're saying, but have we ever had that instance?
Well, I don't know if it is a wash. I'd have to find that out. I'd have to find out if how much that raises the power cost adjustment and brings in the revenue is a wash for what we pay for unit one. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say.
I believe I
We
do.
need to analyze it to see.
Right, is, in the formula for calculating the power cost adjustment, is unit one its own separate column?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then the cost of unit one, you said we can't go in and pick and pull something out. Stuck it in there individually. So what I'm saying is, that is one of the factors that is in that huge formula, which I understand, it's a huge formula that is massive. But that cost of unit one was put in to the power cost adjustment, which caused the rates under our administration to seem like they increased because we put this into the power cost adjustment. If it is not an expenditure of providing electricity to the town and is in fact a business venture of the town, that should be an expense of the town that is included in the calculation of the power cost adjustment instead of a separate entity in that.
But it is part of the cost.
But she's trying, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think what you're trying to do is say, if you took it out,
Yeah.
run a cycle, don't put it in there, would you see, how much cost would you see on each utility bill go down?
What would the power cost adjustment differential
Because
be?
what she's saying is somebody's got to pay for it. But
I know we're gonna rate this part.
but does it have to be
This is
in
our
that?
rates.
Here's the bill right here, from March 2018, we owe $101,000. $101,000 for this month, for unit number one. The note, it started out at 65, it's now, the total amount is 61,710. MISO, the revenues on it was 85,000. The expense, operating cost was 21,000. Administrative and general 5,300. The note 61,000, and other contingency and total power related cost total 93,000. And then a true up, they have a true up as well, was 17,000 from December. Our total cost was 101,000.
I mean, you're acting as if I'm saying don't pay the bill. What I'm saying is, yes, we have to pay for it, but it's a business venture of the towns. It is not a cost of providing electricity to our residents. Therefore, the entire amount should not be on its own column and added to that power cost adjustment so that the residents are feeling the full brunt of a decision that they did not make.
I disagree from the standpoint that we don't know, this is public service, I mean, you're dealing with utilities, you're dealing with the power, and I don't know if you can pull that out. That's why we get the experts to tell us. That's why
Tell
we
them what we talked about what y'all really wanted to do in Unit 1, about instead of continuing to pay these exorbitant costs, what were you wanting to do? And then you're still researching that, right?
Well, because we want, I mean, the owners were wanting to say.
Tell them about the one town right quick.
What if we closed?
How many percent in?
Back when all this was going on, the town was, I mean, all the towns that wanted to participate, that were LEPA members, were given, they had studies done, said, well, your town can afford this percentage of that power plant. But they shook down to 10.3%. Home of Louisiana thought it was such a great deal. They said, we don't need to do a study of what we can afford. We want everything we can get, which was over 40%. And they've been losing anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000 a month. And
How do they know what I can afford?
Huh?
How in the world do they know what I can afford?
That was a city.
No, that was the city of Houma. They made the decision.
Just like we did.
They made the decision, and this was a decision that was made. And now we got to know, and we've got an expense that we got to make. We have one vote on this panel.
But you were willing to just pay, what were you talking about, defaulting or something?
No, what we would, I mean, we would say, for example, if we just paid the note on it and it didn't generate, we would say
40-something thousand.
40,000 this particular month.
Just pay the note. Don't take any more.
Got to do something.
Buzz, this study that you're gonna have done,
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming they'll take the data that we have, how much
much income we've generated over a certain period of time versus how much it costs. Can you give them the objective to make this study and figure out the means to correct the problem of the shortfall without passing it on to the consumer?
Yes.
That's what we want.
Great question.
That's what we want.
That's what they want.
But that should be your principal objective. But what I'm saying, when you have the study done, rather than just give them all kind of power there to do what they want to do or make suggestions, tell them you would like to do that. And maybe something will come up as far as other ways to achieve this, other than, well, we're not getting enough for water, we need to make an upward adjustment of the water bill.
Well, I have a question on that.
Okay.
Have y'all looked at, say, the water, and how much you're losing, and can y'all account to make sure that every expense that is being run on the water is a true water expense?
We've got
Is
that.
there anything in the water department that is not a water expense?
Not that
I
we're,
know sometimes.
Y'all pretty much adjusted all that.
We've got all that straight. Now, when we got in office, Raymond, it was a mess.
Okay.
People,
I'm just asking.
we had street department and sewer and this and this, and that. It was,
Okay.
we
Where's the
got all.
dog pound?
Huh?
Where's the dog?
Dog?
General fund,
Where's the employee that's running overtime for the dog pound?
that would be in the utility fund, in the electric department.
let me say one thing about that. That employee called me and said that they had an option for the city to look at, which we have more than one option.
We're getting off agenda.
Well, that's true, we were talking about rates.
Okay.
But again,
We're off.
I think we need to
But
stay
we
off
need
that
to try
right
to-
now. Y'all are very much aware of that, and we know what's going on with that
Right.
somewhat, but we need to get that straight, whatever it is.
Any more discussion on that? We know where we're at. We're having meetings. We're meeting with aldermen. We're having several meetings to go. And as far as the, we need to have these meetings with these people to come in with y'all and sit down and go over, the scope of these studies, what they're going to cost.
One thing we did ask was, where are we gonna start this assessment? At what, when we were talking about that in our meeting, was about, do you start it with a $37 million budget, or do you start it with a $31 million budget? Where do you start that process to where we need to be? Because if you come in here and say, well, are we doing good with what we got? Well,
What,
that again is something that
I
we
see
gotta
what you're
look
saying, but
at.
what I'd like to see us do is go in and start pulling out things and then looking at just what the standalone, for example, what would be required for that water for you to maintain that system. And then when you do those each ones, they stand alone to maintain those systems.
Along with each department.
Right, then you start pulling out those different ones you're plugging in.
But the one thing you said a while ago, Bill, which is not our responsibility, is to determine what each department needs. That is yours and your department head's responsibility, because that's not our personnel, has nothing to do with
What did I say there about?
Well, you said something about we'd have meetings talking about what we want to do with each department. Well, we can't
Well,
get into that part.
I'm talking about from an expense standpoint, Tom.
Well, the expense is, the biggest expense is your personnel, and that's something we can't get into, right?
You can from the standpoint of what your idea is about what to do about the expense for that department, yes. Now, we're gonna ask you, if you can recuse yourself from comment if you want, but we
But
want
I'm
to know.
saying, you're talking about down to each employee?
No, we're not, I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
I wasn't thinking about it, talking about each employee, I was just talking about the whole department. I'm
Give
talking
me an
about what they,
example of what you're talking about. Give me some example.
I will when we have a meeting.
I mean, I just wonder.
It's not on the agenda. I'm not gonna discuss all the open stuff of everything we're gonna talk about in meetings.
I'm
with
just
all
saying,
of
but I
you.
mean, I'm just saying an example of what we had is to where these meetings would be, worthwhile. To go towards what we're looking at, a point where the citizens are not paying as much electric, or water, or gas, or whatever it takes. But mainly electric, because that was what that hydro was put in place for, not.
All I can tell you tonight is after we have the meetings, next meeting, you'll be telling the people this process is gonna help you a lot. It's working. That's all I can tell you.
We went to one meeting.
I know, but the first meetings were just for discussion, just for camaraderie, to get together and everybody understand the fact that we want to work together and everybody come with, it won't be everybody agree, but at least everybody work together to come with some kind of a budget that people will support, or at least feel good about, that they had input in, and that there's some result of their input in the budget, so that we see things going in the direction of being able to do things about rates. That's what the staff is trying to do. I'm talking for the staff. Okay.
What I don't want to see from this study, the last thing I'll say, I don't need to wrap this up. What I don't want to see from this study is that the decision is made that the gas needs to increase, the water needs to increase, thereby the sewage needs to increase, and the sanitation needs to increase. Everything go up for the electricity to go down. Because we've not done what we set out to do with the beginning of this discussion, or what was set out to do in the beginning of campaigns, which was lower the cost of living in the city of Vidalia. Lower the expenses, lower the cost of living.
Sabrina, what my comments have been to these companies, because I'm the one who originally called them, and that because they asked me to get the studies, and they asked me what it was going to be doing. What we said is we want to get a starting place. We want to know what we need to do to cover the basic cost of operating each, based on what it is. That doesn't mean you can't cut what it is to reduce what you got to have, okay? It's not, they're not going to come tell us, cut this department or cut that department, or that's up to the board and the budget part of it.
I'm very aware of that, which is why I'm leery of the study, because they're going to tell us what we need to do, what we need to charge based on our current budget. And I want to be able to see what would we charge if we decreased our budget 5%, if we decreased our budget 10%, if we decreased our budget 20%.
That was my point a while ago when I made the
That's
statement.
what I'm more curious to see.
I wasn't planning to ask them what we need to cover our budget. I was planning to get a bare bones what to operate these departments, not counting what we spend for the convention center or the fire department, and then it's up to our group, your group, to say what you plug in there.
Okay.
That will raise the rates and stuff, you know what I'm saying? From what the basic cost is. That's what the way I'd like to see it done. The mayor's, he's the one who's gonna decide, but I'd rather not look at it from what it is now.
Right. Okay.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Last thing on the agenda, have Heather Malone, and she's gonna give us an update on Project Blue.
And I will be quick, to the point. So we have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on this project to get everything wrapped up and finalized. I know that's what everybody's waiting on, is ultimately an announcement. So that's our goal too, is to get to that point. I can say that final documents are being circulated right now for closing between the lender and USDA and the company and the city. And we've been seeing some of those documents circulate through. We're now looking at daily conference calls with the lender and USDA and attorneys and all of that. So we are getting near to the finish line, and we're excited about that. We are actually waiting on the closing date any day now. So we've pushed as hard as we can from our end, and we've used as much power and control that we can to get this pushed through as quickly as possible, because we know that we definitely need more job opportunities here with quality jobs that can support a family, that can, appreciate a quality of life that we have to offer here in Vidalia and in the area. So we are working very hard to make sure that we get to that point. So hopefully next time I'm up here, I'm telling you better news than what I have today, but hopefully we'll be making an announcement very, very soon.
Yeah. Okay, all right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Alderman Carter, second by Alderman Probst. All in favor?
All right.